Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sage Wright, and I'm the Associate Producer of Indigenous Theater at the National Arts Center. And we're so pleased to have you with us today as we listen in on a conversation between two brilliant artists who have contributed to Kaumatitsanik Ninarwamit Hwaji Majakanik, a Kipnis Lantern Film Festival celebrating artists from the North. I would like to thank the sponsors of today's programming, the Slate Family Foundation and the TD Ready Commitment. The Kipnis Lantern is a public screening space at the NAC in downtown Ottawa, and we've programmed this film festival as a way to bring warmth and light to the space during our coldest season. The festival features 5 pieces of work by artists from Nunavut, Nain, and the Northwest Territories, and includes animated works by Echo Hinosh and Asinajak Witaluktuk in Shaman and 3000, archival footage from Joby Witaluktuk in Inukshop, Super 8 film work by Siku Alulu in Spirit Emulsion, and hand-painted stop-motion animation in Large Feast on a Bed of Cardboard and Whale Hunt, I Think Everyone Is Here, from Megan Kayak Monteith, who also created the digital art that accompanies each film on the Kipnis Lantern. Today, we are joined by 2 of these artists who will discuss their creative process and inspirations behind their work and the ways in which they are lighting up the world with their knowledge. Asinajak is the curator of these film selections. She's from Inukjuak, Nunavik, and lives in Tiohtià:ke. Asinajak's work includes filmmaking, writing, and curating. Her work has been exhibited at art galleries and film festivals around the world. She has co-curated Tilaranit, a 3-day festival celebrating Inuit art and artists, Izuma's show in the Canadian Pavilion at the 58th Venice Biennale, and the inaugural exhibition Inua at the Kalamazoo. In 2020, she was longlisted for the Sobey Art Award. Asinajak's film 3000 plunges us into a sublime imaginary universe, 14 minutes of luminescent archive-inspired cinema that recasts the present, past, and future of her people in a radiant new light. Siku Alulu is an Inuk Haitian Taino artist and emerging filmmaker from Denende, by way of Midimatalik Nunavut through her father and Haiti through her mother. Rooted in her Inuit, Haitian Taino, and Dene homelands, Siku is well regarded as a leader in Indigenous resurgence, working across the arts, cultural land-based education, and decolonial advocacy. Siku's poetry and other writing have been widely published, and her multimedia artwork has been exhibited nationally in several groundbreaking art exhibitions. She's currently developing a feature-length documentary in honor of her mother, historic Indigenous women's activism, and Taino resurgence. Siku's film Spirit Emulsion is a depiction of a woman's connection to her mother in the spirit world, reactivating Taino culture and presence, and revealing a realm unseen. Filmed on Super 8 and developed by hand with plant medicines and botanicals, Spirit Emulsion develops a language for Taino filmmaking based on the earth and cosmos, and in doing so, breathes an ancestral connection into new form. Spirit Emulsion is her first film. So please join me in welcoming Siku and Asinajak.
Thank you so much for having us.
So nice to be here.
Yes, it's so nice to be here. And it's really exciting to think of the Kipnis Lantern as a beautiful place that will host our work.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, I had a really fun time imagining which films could light up the lantern, and I was thinking a lot about the location and who we would be talking to and what I would want to say, and thinking about all of the amazing work and what all like the Inuit community have to say. And that's like, I think always about a million things at once. And I was thinking about a lot of things, but especially like, what do I want to say? What should like light up the world? And that's how my dad and I thought of the title together.
I love the title. It's so beautiful and perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, I was thinking of what are I think about the beginning of filmmaking and like animation and how light and images first started being projected with light, and the Kipnis lantern really like makes me think of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that in all the films we share our knowledge and what we know of the world,
Mm.
and that when we share those things, it brightens the world. So my dad and I came up with the title How Matitinik Nunakjuamit How Yi Mayakanik.
I love it.
And that's like a poetic way of saying lighting up the world with my knowledge. So that's what I think we're doing. And I was also thinking about all of the films that are in the program and how much knowledge there is in them and values. There's so much amazing things being shared. And I want to say thank you to you for letting us have your film, Spirit Emulsion, in this collection of films.
Thank you for including me in your beautiful program.
It's a pleasure. I'm always thinking of you and your work, and I think that you're incredible and you share really, really, really special things with the world.
I really appreciate you so much, and you're so much a part of just making very important space and doing it in such a loving way that is always led by values, always led by love and inclusion and connection across so many different things that a lot of people don't think about. And I always love the many different layers of things that you think about and that you hold together. And just thank you for always making a space for me in that too.
Yes, it's a pleasure. And I know we talked about it, and I want to share it with everyone that even though the film that you made, Spirit Emulsion, focuses on your Tiano heritage and your mother, that everything you make is Inuk, and that it's a pleasure to celebrate you and the work you make, regardless of what the focus is, and that, of course, we know it's always Inuit art and that we always have a space for you.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing your voice.
Well, we both share a same appreciation for that open perspective of bringing all of who we are. And I think that that's an important thing at this point in time and for the future as well.
Yes, I think so. I was thinking a lot with our exhibition Inua about what I want to carry with me into the world as we create the world. And I think that the complexity of our identities is really important thing to be able to carry forward with us, and to work really hard to not invite our kin to erase any part of themselves that's a beautiful, positive part of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And to allow each other to be fully human and fully ourselves, and to contain multitudes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. beautiful.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, because a part of your multitudes is like, I know you, and I was first introduced to you in your work through writing, and so from poetry and creative writing, and I know you do community work, and that you lately, like, you made this amazing, you turned one of your poems into a tapestry with sealskin and canvas, and you're working on beading and like kind of moving towards more like tactile arts, and now you're moving into filmmaking. So what's inspiring you in all of these different modes of making?
Mm. That's a good question. I've never thought about that question. um, I don't ever have an idea about what I want the end result to be. It's never ever clear to me. I'm very just in love with the process of whatever's happening, and it's just led by wherever my spirit and my heart want to go. And it's usually afterward that I put pieces together for why those things were significant. Like the sealskin poem only became, I only put pieces together that are so obvious now, like maybe halfway through making it. And like the connection to sadhana and just transformation and repair, all of those things kind of came together afterward. And it's similar, like I've always wanted to be working in film eventually, and I had a couple of false starts a long time ago. And it's just finally the time. I think right now film is it's an important way, I think, to be able to pass on knowledge and information, and for people to always be able to see and hear and feel in a way that like will carry on after we're no longer here. And this project, I'm trying to bring a lot of my mom's her work forward, her intentions, the values that she instilled in me, and the vision that she had in her life. She was so driven and she accomplished such amazing things, but you don't see them in the historical record, just because of colonialism and mainstream media not focusing on Indigenous issues back in the 70s, 80s, and not focusing especially on women. And so I want to have her place firmly recognized, and not just her, but she worked in a connection, in a network with so many of her friends and sisters and just people across different borders. And when I look in the archives for the women that came before us, it's so frustrating and it's hard to see them. And yet, like, I live in the world in such a values-oriented way, and it's because of my mom. And I think like a lot of those things that don't get seen are so important. So I want to try and help make sure that they can become seen.
That's really sounds like hard work, but also work that would have such a lasting impact on the shape of the world. So definitely worth it. That's incredible. And I totally hear you when you talk about making choices and doing them and not quite knowing until all of a sudden you can see how everything is so imbued with intention and meaning.
Mhm.
I definitely have those moments as well. And sometimes, like, you look back at yourself and you're like, wow, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I feel like I'm always going in ass backwards. Like I have no idea. I hope I'm allowed. You can bleep that out if it's not acceptable.
And so do you, I know in this, I have a couple questions about the film that you made, Spirit Emulsion. Um, and I kind of was wondering, and maybe you don't know the answer, maybe you already do, depending on where you are and looking back at your actions. I was wondering about why you chose to use Super 8 and about the plant medicines you use to develop it, and just anything you want to share about that process.
Mm. Well, actually, there's something that came together recently. I wanted to use Super 8 just because I'm very analog and I like the tactile approach to things. It's much more intuitive to me than technology, like digital. And also because I connected with this like amazing filmmaker and teacher named Lisa Marr. And I was able to connect with her through a mentorship, and she taught me this eco-processing approach to developing analog film, which is you basically make a tea and have some key things in there that will help develop the film, but it's pretty open-ended, the different kinds of botanicals you can put in. And I was really drawn to that, just being somebody that, we always spent time on the land, we always picked medicines, and it's something that I did with my mom, and it's something I know that she would love to do. And I also got to spend a lot of time with flowers, which I just love, but I learned later that I remembered later a story that my mom told me and my siblings when we were growing up about some of our Taino ancestors. And Columbus and the first ships from Spain landed on my mom's island, and our Taino ancestors met them, and they're like early in that period, the Spanish had been like awful and genocidal. And there was one leader, a woman chief named Anacaona, and she decided when they came into her region that her approach was to welcome them and to put on this the celebration for several days and feast them. And what I remember, what my mom and what she said was there was music and dancing and feasting for several days, and there were flowers everywhere. And at the end of the ceremonies, the Spanish, they feigned that they were going to reciprocate and do a dance, show how they celebrate, and they launched a massacre. But the thing that I realized, afterward, I've been going through some of my mom's writing, and she wrote about Anacaona in that time, and she said that our people and Anacaona were spiritually strong, and she would have fasted and prepared and known what was going to happen. And she said, like, a lot of Indigenous people knew what was coming and knew had prophecies and knew that it couldn't be stopped. But Anakaona, she found a way that to ensure that our people would always be remembered. And I've been wondering why flowers became such a big part of my film. Other than I love them and I think that they're so beautiful, but I knew that there's another part. And I think just that piece of there were flowers, they ensured that there were flowers everywhere. And we think about flowers, or we share flowers as part of remembrance. And I think when I look back on that story, our people and our histories have always been erased, and we're always having to compete or to counter that. And a lot of the time, most of the time, our resistance or our self-determination, the way that we want to respond, and our strength and all of that, the love and the courage, that our way of thinking is so often invisible to the outside. And so that's why I think it was that's a piece that I think is why that's in Spirit Emulsion.
The flowers are like for me, and like that kind of thing.
Well, like our dignity, like so much of the way things are framed with Indigenous people is the things that happen to us rather than the things that we do ourselves, or our own responses, which are from such a grounded place and a place of love and continuity. And so, like in my film, none of them are cut flowers. They're like ones that are growing, and it's like we're still here and we're still growing and we're flourishing.
Yes, and now I also understand the flowers are a choice. Like the going isn't a choice, but the flowers are a choice.
Yeah.
Even if the situation is as a whole not under your control, there are still choices you can make within it as to how it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your strength and power.
Yeah, that's us.
Wow, that's really makes the film like imbued to its very core with that sentiment of strength and choice. Wow.
But that's what Inuit do. That's like we innovate and use things to our own purposes. And it's always like with innovation, and it's so self-determined,
Yes, totally. It definitely is. And that like that the Super 8 film is also worth the love and time to do a process and think about how to treat it. It's also a way that you treat that film strip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's amazing. When I was in film school, I loved film, and I loved like doing nail polish and all kinds of things on them. And now with this new knowledge, when I think back on it, it's like, wow, I gave a spa day to my to my film reel. That's definitely love.
That's so cute. I gave mine a flower bath.
Yes, that's very, very sweet. That's so sweet. Yes, I love it. And I think I had another. Oh, yes, because when I think of writing and some of the other ways that you make art, I think of them as kind of solitary, like beading and writing. Is that the case for you?
Yeah, very much. My part, like when writing, yes, and the other things completely solitary. But when it comes to film, there's so many skill sets that I don't have, and it made a way to open up into collaborations that I was so excited about, and it just like it made it a shared thing. So working with Jesse Zubat, who's my partner, who is a brilliant composer and a musician. We worked a lot together. In a way, I've never done something before where the music, it kind of went back and forth, music and editing. And sometimes the editing, when I was working on the edit, would follow the music, and sometimes vice versa. And the woman that did the vocals, Pura Fey, is a Taino woman, and her father's side is Taino, and they're from Puerto Rico, and her mother's side is Tuscarora. And we met at the perfect time, and she agreed to share her vocals, that part is important too, actually, because I found her music quite a lot of years after my mom passed, but I was drawn to it. And specifically, the sound of her voice has similarities to the sound of my mom's voice. Mm. And I didn't know she was Taino. I didn't know that Pura Fey was Taino until even several years later. I think I read it somewhere and I was like, what? And so I was, dreaming one day to get to meet her, and it happened. I got to meet her while I was starting the edit of this film, and she was very generous and shared her voice, and we got her to do the voice of my mom. And my co-producer Jessica Hallenbeck is also the person that gave me my first editing lesson, because I'm very not technological. So yeah, this film, it's only possible because of the other people that have come into my life to be part of it. And I really like it that way, because I think that, it's important to support and work together, and that's how we bring things into the world.
Totally. I think so. And that's one of the things I think is amazing about film, is getting to work with other people. It's like, definitely, I know there's people who make it all on their own and don't need anyone else. But for me, and when it comes to film, I think one of the special things is having an occasion to work with people and seeing how everyone's ideas come together. And I think it's a really special thing about the process. And how incredible. I know earlier you said that you had some false starts, but you met the vocalist for the music for your film like right at the right time. Like, clearly this is the time for you to start making films.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was just so impressed. Clearly you can do anything you set your mind to. You really blew me away with this work.
Oh, thank you. Your film was like it was such an incredible and a profound thing when I first saw it in the Winnipeg Art Gallery right before I met you. And you start with a story about my father was born in a sod house And like I had written Caribou People, and one of the things in there, I think in that story, was about my dad also being born in a sod house. And I just was like, who is this person? And like what it was a I just felt like this place that you made in the gallery for viewing your film, and the way that you were telling the story, it just, I felt like it put me in this special place in the cosmos, and I felt seen, and I also felt like I could really understand what you were doing, and it just spoke to me in this like beautiful, uplifting way. And also the way that you worked with the archival imagery was like, I figured a lot of that imagery probably was taken at like Summit, a residential school, and these like images of progress, and probably made as part of a narrative of domination. But the way that you did it was like showing us, and in like a playful and loving and like beautiful way that wasn't really, it did a similar thing. It wasn't like something happening to us. It was like, look at us at this other moment in time, and look at us doing these things. And yeah, I just thought that was like so powerful and so beautiful, and I could feel the love very, very strongly. So what is that something that you had an intention to do?
I think that I grew a lot while I was making it, and at some point I had to make a decision about how to include the Hadlonat in it. And I think at the end of the day that it's the Inuit who are in the archives who are the main focus, the hero, and that it was important not to exclude or erase the history of like the Hadlonat who were there and who were present, but it was important not to focus on them and their actions, but instead to focus on us and what was happening to us. Mm-hmm. So in the end, it's that these characters of the teachers and the like boat captains and the like ministers, whoever they are, they're present, but they're not the focus. And the focus is always really on Inuit and on the world that we live in, with all of the snow and the animals and the mountains, the water, all of that's the focus. And the agitators of of that world are present, but not the focus. But you can definitely see the wake that follows them and that they cause. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Working with the archives is something.
Tell us about it.
Well, I think that it's just a complicated thing that's really beautiful and enriching, and at the same time there are certain moments that can really get into you. And there's some of the hard stuff, like it starts with ethnographic filming, which is very invasive on people's bodies. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing that I had to decide, which is even though this is in the archive and it's all true and it's all a part of the story, how far do you show and let people see and include on this story those really invasive and hurtful things? Mm-hmm. And I just decided that you can see the effect of what's happening without seeing people's mouths being pulled open, and that even just talking about it honestly makes a violent feeling inside of me, a really hurt and violent feeling. So it's like I don't need to push that on this story. And so a lot of it is knowing working with the archive like that, that's so big, and making a story that spans over like 100 years and then into 1,000 years later. It's like really a lot of decisions on keeping the world of the archive to be able to tell its story and speak for itself, and knowing like try not to let it get too glossed over and romanticized of the past, and also try not to let the past, the violence of the past, become too overwhelming on the whole story. So it's a lot of balance on just how far you have to tell something for it to be felt and understood, and to also you have to take care of viewers, I think. So you take care of everyone by taking the time to consider what's being put in, and as I talked about before with like Inua, it really gave me the space to think about what am I carrying with me into the future. And I carry enough of the pain that we can grow from it and know our history and learn, but not so much of it that it's weighing me down and hurting me. It's that balance.
I'm so glad that you spoke about that, because I could feel it and it was uplifting, and I still feel uplifted. I watch that film like probably a couple times every year for like 5 years. And but yeah, I think that exactly what you're speaking about is part of lighting the world with our knowledge, is the care and the intention and the vision for the future and the vision for the impacts, and like wanting it, you're planting things in there, and it's an awareness, and it's also like it's a gift.
Yes. So thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you so much for making this amazing film and letting us share it. And I think you light up the world. I think the filmmakers who are in this in this selection also light up the world. And I think maybe does everyone light up the world a little bit?
Yes, and you definitely do too. Yes,